equality, they would lose the special protections they enjoyed as the weaker sex. This argument was revisited in more recent times when writer Nora Ephron quipped that the most enduring legacy of the feminist movement was the Dutch treat. Women are not equal in every respect to men. There are still battles to be fought. But a girl born today begins her journey with an equal sense of possibility for the future. Women are the crown jewel of the electorate. Politicians court their votes. The fabled soccer moms decide elections. And women, if they ever decided to vote as a bloc, could run the country. It was not always this way. When Woodrow Wilson was inaugurated president in March 1913, a married woman was considered the property of her husband. Women couldn't serve on juries or, in the event of divorce, gain custody of their children. Women couldn't travel alone comfortably. A lone woman staying in a hotel was considered loose. It was radical thinking to propose that women participate in society directly as individuals rather than as an extension of their husbands or fathers. Opponents of suffrage predicted family life would collapse if women were allowed out of their preordained sphere of house and home. Suffrage comes from the Latin suffragium, or vote, and it was at the heart of the reform movements that began to take root in America beginning in the 1890s, during what was known as the Progressive Era. Cultural change of this magnitude doesn't occur unless millions of people come to a consensus that it is needed. How public opinion was molded and then mobilized to pass the 19th Amendment to ensure women the right to vote is the model for the other major social movements of the 20th century. The future passage of civil rights legislation in the 1960s, the anti-war protests during the Vietnam era, and the modern women's movement of the 1970s all have their roots in the 72-year battle to win woman suffrage, as it was called at the time. What makes the suffrage movement most unlike the others is that most of its intended beneficiaries for most of those 7+ decades did not share its goals. The majority of women did not particularly care about getting the vote or were openly hostile toward suffrage. Women who wanted the vote were for the longest time in the minority among women. My own career parallels the women's movement. I started at Newsweek as a secretary in 1963 with no expectation of becoming a reporter or a writer. With rare exceptions, women at the news magazines were confined to clerical and research positions. I was grateful to work in a place where what I typed was interesting. When feminist Gloria Steinem appeared on the cover of Newsweek in March 1970, there was no woman on staff whom the editors would entrust to write about her. An outsider was brought in, journalist Helen Dudar, who did a first-rate job interpreting the new feminism sweeping the country as a long-lasting movement with consequences for women and men alike. But the fuse was lit. The women at Newsweek brought a class-action suit against the magazine for discrimination. Nora Ephron, a Newsweek researcher, was among the plaintiffs. The Washington Post owns Newsweek, and when publisher Katharine Graham learned of the lawsuit, she asked, "Which side am I supposed to be on?" She was management, but she was also a woman. The case was settled out of court, and Newsweek agreed to a system of goals and timetables to advance women at the magazine. I applied for an internship, and the biggest hurdle I had to get over was convincing the chief of correspondence that I could handle out-of-town assignments because I had young children. Soon after my internship, I was assigned to cover Jimmy Carter's first presidential campaign. When he won, I was named White House correspondent for Newsweek. I call it my Cinderella story. This is the story of the Founding Sisters. They engineered the greatest expansion of democracy on a single day that the world had ever seen, and yet suffrage faded from public memory almost as soon as it happened. The leaders built no monuments to themselves.